It's Barack Obama's last few days in office, and I'm still waiting. Not for the president to cite his accomplishments. He's done plenty of that. But to admit his failures. He's done virtually none of that. I just want him to give a fair and balanced view of his performance without blaming Fox or Rush Limbaugh or Republicans for those times he came up short. To grade himself, not on a curve, but on facts. So ahead of his final press conference tomorrow, let me help out today. By all means, Mr. President, take a bow for the economic turnaround. It was real. But at least throw a bone to the Federal Reserve for keeping interest rates at zero to help assure that turnaround stayed real. And take credit for the millions of jobs gained. But do point out a lot were and are part-time jobs, so not quite what they appear. Talk up an expansion that did indeed start under your watch, but acknowledge the restless voters who didn't feel it, so they voted for a Republican watch. Brag about how you drew down our troops in the Middle East, just like you said you would, but admit it has done nothing to restore stability in the Middle East, and that is a fact. Rightly boast how you took out Osama bin Laden, as long as you rightly admit you never figured out ISIS. Just some inconvenient truths as you struggle with the meaning of your legacy, a legacy you defined, and you led, the good, the bad, all of it, all you. After all, didn't another Democrat famously say the buck stopped with him? So let us start with you. The red line on Syria, that was you. You can keep your doctor, that was you. Higher health insurance costs, that was you. The fact that you're the first president since Herbert Hoover not to have at least 1 year of 3% growth, Mr. President, that was you. Real wages stagnating or outright falling for the bottom 80% of Americans, that was you. Now, it would be unfair to lay all the blame for these things at your feet. Then again, it would be unfair not to lay some of it at your doorstep. Because in the rush to blame Rush or the Russians, you seem to forget that you were the president. As Peter Wenner wrote in this past weekend's New York Times of you, Mr. President, he has shown withering disdain for his opponents, constantly impugning their motives, even as he testified to the purity of his own. Look, Republicans weren't saints. But, Mr. President, you were hardly without sin. And despite your latest boast, hardly without scandal. And Fox was hardly the only one to take note. Fox didn't target political groups. Your IRS did. Fox didn't seize phone records of Associated Press reporters and others. Your Justice Department did. Fox didn't create multiple storylines over those infamous 2012 Benghazi attacks. Your administration did. You did. That doesn't mean your opponents couldn't sometimes be petty. It just means that you weren't above sometimes, now admit it, being petulant. And now at the end of these 8 years, I still find you remarkably prickly. To anyone who would dare question you being anything less than a prince. You're not perfect. No one is. But few of us would blame our failures on an inability to transfer our personal appeal on the stump. You see, sir, that's what stumps me. Your refusal to take any blame, for a legacy that voters clearly rejected. And working overtime in these waning hours to make sense of it now.